Hello everyone and welcome back to Studio 64. So in today's video I'm going to be teaching you guys how to make custom weathering on your LEGO Clone Troopers. So I haven't actually done customizing in about a year now. I'm just going to do a little bit of painting just before we get started. So I'm just going to put up a nice 64th Legion Clone Trooper here. And hopefully that should just like jog my memory a little bit on how I actually customize figures. Because you know guys, I've kind of forgotten. After the customizing king, no I'm joking guys, I was never the king. I was always the LEGO bro. But without further ado guys, let's get into a very quick video of me painting up a custom 64 Clone Trooper. Okay, so we now have finished our first custom, which we've made in over a year. So yeah, I think I did a pretty good job to be fair. That's not even enough focus, is it? So here is the figure up close. Obviously, I'd already done a bit of it before I started painting, but yeah, it looks really, really cool. And now let's start on with the weathering. So there are 3 different types of weathering I'm going to show you in this video. The main 2 I use are dry brushing and then using wet paint and kind of dabbing it off with a paper towel. I'll show you how to do that. And the last one is actually to paint on weathering details. As we're going to do all 3 on this one Clone Trooper, we're going to start off with the wet paper towel one. Let's go. So obviously we're going to need some paint for this weathering. So there's 2 different types of paint I use today. I'm just going to use these Citadel ones, which are usually used to like Warhammer and that sort of thing, just purely because I have more colors for what I need. I also use these Applebauer ones. They both work equally as well. So you basically just need some good quality acrylic paint, but I've just found that these ones work really well for Lego. So for this first method, this paint needs to be really watered down. So I'm just going to get a tiny little bit of paint on there. That's probably too much, and I'm just going to wash it a bit off in here. So yeah, basically you just need to get like almost all of that paint off, just so you have a very little amount left on that paintbrush there. So what I'm going to do now is just going to very lightly just start brushing this onto the figure, and this might even be a bit too much paint. That's fine, because we're going to dry it off in a minute with some paper towel. You just want to get it in all the different gaps, try and fill all the different corners. That's like the main part of this method, is you kind of want to get it into like every little nook and cranny you can. So I'm just going to go and fill in all these gaps. We can do this on the front of the helmet as well. Even on this little grey bit here, it will still show up, have it in there as well. So now we've got it in all the gaps, we're just going to get the excess and just paint it all over, just everywhere, even on the flat surfaces. So the next step, which is an important step, is that you need to get some paper towel, just like, I don't know what you guys call it, kitchen roll, paper towel, that sort of thing. And you basically just want to start dabbing off all of this paint you just put on. And I know that sounds a bit stupid because you just spent ages putting it on, but trust me on this one, you need to just dab it off. Don't try and get into those corners. You want to leave the corners as much as you can. Right, so here's our first round done. As you can see, you can't really see much of this anymore, but that's okay, because what you need to do with this method is basically just layer it up over time. There's not really much brown left on there, but we're just going to do the same thing over and over again until we get a really, really good and strong brown color on there. And we can also use a few different other colors as well, just to kind of give that like layered look. Okay, so now I've finished this wet weathering and it is looking really, really cool. You can see, as I said, after a lot of layering, it does eventually show up in those little cracks there. These are the ones that I use in case you're wondering. And I use a little bit extra on the feet as well, just to make it look like he's been walking through mud. So yeah, it's looking really, really nice. So now let's move on to the dry brushing. So you can dry brush with any color, but it basically just needs to be lighter than what you've already got. So as I've already weathered this figure quite a lot, I'm gonna be using white, so it just like really brings out the bits that aren't supposed to be as weathered. This works very differently to the last one, as the last one was all about getting into those little cracks where you can't really reach. But this one's more about those raised areas that are going to be easier to clean off for the trooper, so therefore they're going to be less dirty, really. So you really don't need much paint at all for this method. So, oh, that was a bit. It was a little bit runny. So apart from looking like a bird has just pooped onto my paint palette, we have some white paint now. So yeah, I'm just going to get a brush. I'm going to use this brush just because I always use this one for dry brushing, but you really can use any different brush. And the clue in the name for dry brushing is you basically get a little bit of paint and you want to just dry the brush until you get almost all of that paint off, so there's almost nothing left on it. We got our Clone Trooper, and you basically just need to brush it over those raised areas, and we might have actually used too little paint here. I feel like it's sort of working a bit there. You basically just need to keep doing that, and again we need to layer this up like the last one, but you basically just need to keep on using that white on those edges and trying to basically keep the very, very raised bits lighter. It basically just makes it more realistic as how like the dirt would settle and stuff like that. Now obviously this isn't going to show up that well because it's already a white helmet, but it should show in contrast to the weathering, which is what we want to see really. So here we have our finished dry brushing, and yeah, it doesn't add too much detail, but it's definitely worth it, especially on these coloured bits here, just to show the difference between like the edges and the actual like weather bits and stuff as well. So yeah, it looks really, really cool. So now let's move on to our last step, where we're going to hand paint some very fine weathering details. So once again, we're going to be using this white paint. So we basically want to make it look like some of this blue paint has actually chipped off. So if we just do a little scratch there, obviously that's looking a bit too much at the moment, so we can just dab it off like that. But yeah, if we just do tiny little, it should in theory look like some of the paint has been scratched off. And if you're painting on white Clone Troopers as well, you can definitely just like actually scratch some paint off. But because I'm working on a 5 Trooper here, that paint underneath will just be dark blue, so it's not really going to give the same effect. So it kind of looks a bit like some of the paint is chipped off now. Doing on the edges definitely adds like that more realistic feel, kind of chipping away at the edges. If you do actually want to try chipping some paint off, I'm going to do it on the back here, just so we haven't actually got any of the printing underneath there. So you can see it looks a little bit better. Honestly, like there's not a massive difference. I'm just going to keep painting on these little white specks all over the blue, just to give it that really chipped look. So we are pretty much done with all the weathering, and you can see those hand-on details do add a lot to this weathering. This makes it look so much more realistic. But anyway, yeah, it looks really, really cool, and I'm really, really pleased with this. The last thing I would do, I usually just do this just to sort of clear up things a bit, and I'm just gonna use a cocktail stick just to like take all of the weathering off the visor, and then we are pretty much done. So that is just about it for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. I'm really pleased with this end result. I think it looks really, really cool, and yeah, I'm definitely enjoying customizing again. That's really good for you guys, because you might get some more videos at some point. But yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!